Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome you, precious treasure, precious human. I welcome you here and I'm very glad that you decided to jump in and listen to this self-evolution podcast. So we're going to be talking about a vast tapestry of so many of the factors that live under the umbrella of what we perceive as limitation, what we perceive as yourself, what you perceive as where your boundary lies, where your glass ceiling is, what you can do, what you can't do, who you are and who you are not. So I ask you to really remain in a present moment with your body. I ask you to just sink into the space with me. And if you need a notebook or a pen or anything that you feel you're drawn to writing down, bring them closer. Otherwise, stop and start as you wish. I'd like you to close your eyes to make sure that all that you receive from this is truly finding its way into every cell in your body, into your consciousness, and allow to integrate what needs be and what resonates, and allow the rest to fall away. So one thing that I find a lot with clients, strangers, people alike, and in my own experience is the idea of self-sabotage. And it is such a vast, vast umbrella. It's a vast forest in which many trees live. And the real beginning that we need to take heed of is to understand, number one, your template, what I call your blueprint. Who you are now, whether you are 20, whether you are 35, whether you are 65. I've been carrying a template within you from the ages of between 0 and 10 and only solidified thereafter, constantly, consistently acting from that same template. And the way that template came about is the way that you interpreted reality as a child, and it governs everything that you think and that you do. It is when our beautiful genius subconscious mind and then conscious mind decided to get locked in a story, it decided to get locked in a belief, it decided to get locked in a truth which could have been complete untruth. But in my experience, 99.9% of the time, those beliefs, those truths that were locked into our template, that stay there out of self-preservation, that stay there out of protection, that stay there out of coping mechanisms, it served us well, but my God, they are not needed anymore. No. 99.9% of the time, those are your only limitations. And I need you to hear me when I say the following statement. You are simply the product of a template that you've had. But that is not all you are. You are far greater and far more expansive than any form of a belief or limitation, thoughts you've held about yourself, thoughts you've held about the world, thoughts you've held about what you deserve, what you can do and what you can't do. None of those things are true unless you truly believe them. And what we're getting at here is your template is something that is able to be lifted. It's able to be removed once you know what it is. And what resides underneath that, do you know what it is? It's you, the limitless you, the complete you, the unencumbered you. You made rules, you made regulations, and you made those limitations for yourself from a place of not knowing any better. It's from a place of taking your external reality and what you thought, what you saw, and you integrated it, you interpreted it, and kept it as such and locked that in as a template. And the template is familiar. So I'll tell you a story about Yvonne. There was a woman named Yvonne, and when she was 4.5, I believe, her father decided that he wanted to live somewhere else, away from the home. And during that time of separation, Yvonne, as a little girl of 4.5, watched her mother go through a great deal of strife, go through a great deal of grief, and a great deal of confusion, a great deal of frustration and anger. But what Yvonne grew up knowing before that was the love and the affection, and then often anger and fighting that took place between her parents. She understood that as love because that was her template. That was always her template for love. It was the only example that she had. And although her father left, she interpreted and locked in the belief that love is painful most of the time, but the good is what you want, and that love will always end up in leaving even when you don't want it to. That love was full of fighting, and that love was abandonment. Now Yvonne is, I believe, 32, turning 33. Her entire life, throughout her friendships and relationships, so it's not only about relationships, it is a blueprint and her template for reality, relations with others. It's her attachment system. An attachment system is something we'll get into at a later stage. But Yvonne, now being 32, for the first time in her life has reached out to find out what is causing this deep frustration, this deep grief, loneliness, but most of all the pattern of her relations with friends and partners. What Yvonne has done ever since she can remember is as soon as someone came close to her, especially romantic partners, as soon as someone comes close to her, she enjoys the good wave for a little bit, and then she will begin to find reasons to make them leave. Even though she is head over heels, even though she loves them dearly, she will act out any way, shape and form. She will sniff out any reasons and then make it apparent to them in order for them to leave. Because that is the story that her subconscious, her familiar reality gave her. That is the only way that love exists. So over and over and over and over again for the better part of 28 years, she lived within this pattern, simply because that was familiar to her subconscious. And remember, consciously, she wanted to remain in these relationships. They were good people, they nourished her, they were supportive. It's not about the conscious mind, that is 5%. It is the 95% of the subconscious that is running the show. And within that 95%, at the back of your mind, in that subconscious, however you'd like to see it, is where you act from. Those run the show. Those are your limitations, and those are the reasons for your patterns, your beliefs, your thoughts. There are many, many, many things that you feel about yourself consciously. You feel, I know I deserve to make more money because there is just too much month left at the end of my money. I know I deserve more. Or you could say to me, I know I am worthy of love and respect from my partner. I know I am. Yet subconsciously, or the first part, there's been a template around money, around what you need to do in order to feel nourished, to feel like there's enough, to know that there's enough. There's a subconscious template there. And it is acting against your consciousness. It is acting against your conscious feeling of worthiness, your conscious feeling of feeling enough, your conscious feeling of deserving. And I need you to know that at the end of every day and beginning of every day, I need you to know and remind yourself that until you reach a point where you are ready to really dive in, to dig, to move through these things, whatever it may be, that they are not inherently yours, and there is nothing, absolutely nothing inherently the matter with you. Absolutely nothing. It is only the template which has locked itself in, which is affecting your life day to day. And it's only through really intensive observation and really intensive digging, asking all the right questions, once you find out the root of where these come from. But the first number one thing I'd like you to do is make familiar the feeling of being completely unencumbered and entirely capable, without any crap, without any junk, without any limitations, because that is who you are. That is who you truly know you are consciously. I'd like to begin with that in this podcast. I'd really like to begin your first week. If there's anything you take away from this podcast for the next 7 days or 6 days, is to remember that you are not your template, and it can be changed. The first thing I'd like you to practice and ask yourself, truly, completely, and in any and every moment you can remember, I want you to ask yourself, why am I choosing to do this? Whether it is driving to work, whether it is eating something certain, whether it is thinking something, whether it is feeling something, whether you are frustrated, whether you are shouting at your kids, whether you are talking to yourself in a self-critical way, whether you are feeling irrational, whether you are feeling something that you're not even sure what it is, an abstract feeling. Sit with yourself for a moment, and whatever it is that you are doing, I want you to ask yourself, even out loud, I want you to ask yourself, why am I choosing to do this? And you need to trust your genius body and feel and observe its reactions and the small voice that rises up. And the first answer is always right. And with your answer, it may be a word, it may be a picture, it may be a sound, it may be anything that comes up when you ask yourself, why am I choosing to do this? And with that answer, I want you to decide if you want to keep that reason. Because if that reason doesn't sound like it's enough for you, doesn't sound like that's a reason you want in your life. It doesn't sound like that's a reason that you would act out of if you were completely limitless, entirely whole. If that reason and that answer is not aligned to you, I want you to begin choosing differently that specific small thing. If you sit at the dinner table tonight and you are eating a piece of chicken, I want you to ask yourself, why am I choosing to do this? Your answer might be, well, because it was the easiest thing to make. And if for some reason that doesn't feel good to you, that doesn't feel like a good enough reason, that is not the best that you could possibly do, that you wouldn't choose that for yourself if you were completely limitless, loving, joyous, authentic, powerful, and still and gentle and grounded, then choose something else. So I want you to work on your choices this week. And guys, this podcast, brothers, sisters, friends, if you have any thoughts, questions, anything you want to know about, I want to make this a kind of space. The comment section or the Blueprint Therapy Messenger, please fire away, and then I'll address them all in another podcast as soon as I possibly can. I might have a midweek Q&A podcast, so get them in. Get in your thoughts, experiences, questions from your heart. And let's all allow one another to take something away every single time. And if you want to share it, share it. But let's interact. All right. All of my love from yours truly, Isabelle Meiring, the Blueprint Therapist. I'll see you on the other side.